take a look at Perek Chafei Pasuk Yud Gimel, 25:13, page 446. So let me ask you a question. 446, 4 lines from the bottom. Vasisa bade atzei shitim. We're talking about this. I think the fancy word is they use the fancy word is staves. Am I pronouncing it right? Staves or staves? Staves. Is it how you say it? Staves?
Yeah.
And that's staves? Okay. Chaim, don't look at me like that. You didn't know either. Just call it poles, will you? Yeah, okay. So it says, Vasisa bade atzei shitim. V'tzipisa osam zahav. Now, let me ask a question, gentlemen. How many people get called to the Torah in the course of a week? Officially. Not counting maftir.
6. No.
6. Which one? Yeah, that's a short week. Shabbos is part of my week. It's not only part of my week, it's the main part of my week.
13.
No?
10. 12.
15.
14.
10.
Why are you guessing, guys? Don't you daven in shul? No, man. How many?
14.
No. What kind of, how do you go here?
On Monday, 3 on Thursday.
It's 6.
8 on Shabbos.
I said drop maftir.
7. Oh, drop them out there.
Yeah, 7 is how many?
13.
13. Yeah, well, you're still off.
Oh, mincha.
Oh, right. Yeah, mincha. Oh, yeah, mincha. Yeah, mincha and Shabbos. So unpopular. Yeah, mincha. There you go. So you have 16. Okay, you have 16 aliyahs. And maftir is added on later. It's officially 7, right? 3 on Monday, 3 on Thursday, 7 on Shabbos. And for those of you who have attended, there's 3. There is mincha Shabbos afternoon. Yeah, I know. Found that spot on the ceiling. Yeah, right. So after you recover from your slumber, from your Jack Daniels induced slumber or whatever it was that you had with the chont. By the way, I'm a Glenn Morangi man now. What's that? The guys gave me a bottle recently. Yeah, I'll see your bottle and raise you my bottle. It's good stuff. Good stuff. Goes down smooth. Burns a little bit afterwards, but it's worth it. I tell the guys that. But then when my grandchildren make noise, after a couple of shots, it sounds like music. So it's fine. So you got what do you call it? So you have 16 aliyahs. What days of the week do we read the Torah? Monday, Thursday, and Shabbos. So we don't go 3 days. Well, that was why it was instituted. So they shouldn't go 3 days without Torah learning. Monday, Thursday, Shabbos. That's the 2nd day, 5th day, and the 7th day. Right? Take a look at the pasuk. V'yasisa badei. Look at the word badei, gentlemen. 4 lines from the bottom. Badei, beis is 2. Dalet is 4. Yud is 10. There's 16. That alludes to the 16 aliyahs. Atzei shitim, vitzipisa osam, cover those aliyahs. Zahav, Zayin is 7. Hey is 5. Beis is 2. Shabbos, Thursday, Monday. So you got the 16 aliyahs, and you got the 3 days of the week that we read the Torah on. Another one of those little coincidences, right? How do you like that? Now, here's something that's strange. It says over here, you put the badim, the next pasuk says, Veveses habadim betabos. You put them in the rings. Now, I want you to turn ahead for a second and take a look what it says in the, take a look what it says on page 448. It's actually on where is it? Here, on 3 lines from the bottom on 448, it says, Le'umas hamisgeres tia hatabos. This is talking about the bread, the table. It says, facing the misgeres, what's the misgeres? The frame shall be the rings. The table had rings too. We're going to talk about that in a second. Libotim levadim. Now, the Art Scroll translates it as place the rings upon the 4 corners. For the rings shall be opposite, but as housings for the staves. Meaning, in the shulchan, you took the poles of the table, and the poles went into the rings. And the Torah describes those rings as what we would call the case, the thing that closes in on it. And the Torah calls it housings. It's housings for the rings. Botim levadim, okay, which we're going to see in a second more about that. Whereas by the Aron Kodesh, it doesn't say that. It just says, 2 lines, turn back 1 page, 446, it says, B'tabos Aron yuabadim. The poles should be in the rings. It doesn't call them, the rings should be houses for the poles. Doesn't mean they should be the enclosure for the poles, okay? And then you see this by the menorah as well. So you look on page 450, it says, maybe it's 450, 452, where is it? Or maybe it's by the Mizbeach. Where is it that it says, 1 second. 1 second. Turn ahead for 1 second. Yeah, by the Mizbeach, sorry. No, it doesn't. Huh. Well, never mind. Oh, that's a mess up.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Well, now this is awkward.
It's the first time it's ever happened ever.
Yeah, first time it's ever happened today. Yeah, first time today. Yeah, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. Where is it? Okay, so as I was saying, now we move on. Okay, so we were talking about the Aron Kodesh. Okay, now here we go. Take a look at Pasuk Yud Ches. Now we're on the Kruvim. So on top of 448, V'asisa kapora zahav tahor, you should make a covering of pure gold. Top of 448. Amasayim v'chetzi orko, 2.5 amas long, ve'ama v'chetzi rachbo, and 1.5 amas wide. V'asisa shnayim kruvim zahav, there should be 2 golden kruvim. Miksha tasosam mishnek tzosa kaporas. Now miksha means that it is beaten out of 1 piece of gold. This is a remarkable piece of architecture because what you're doing is you're taking a flat sheet, you're taking gold, and the covering of the Aron Kodesh, the covering of when you look back on page 447 at the picture, those 2 look like bird-like creatures, angel-like creatures with their wings facing upwards. They're all pure gold, and they are attached inherently, intrinsically to the golden cover. I mean, they weren't make them and then attach them. It's all 1 piece of gold. And out of this piece, they had to beat the gold, what's it called, sculpt it, in such a way that you have a sheet of gold, and out of that gold grow these two kruvim that are, you don't make them separately and then attach them. And the obvious symbolism is that the kruvim represent children. Take a look at Rashi over here, what he says kruvim are, on page 448. So Rashi says kruvim, 4 lines from the top. Demus partsuf, say 4-line right column on 448, 4 lines from the top in Rashi. If you find it, please show the person next to you. Kruvim, demus partsuf tinok lahem. They have the face of a child. One had a male face, one had a female face, but they have the face of children. You know, you look at the face of children up to a certain age, they just have a very innocent, delectable face. They got that little cherubic face that the children have. As they get older, things change. The Yetzer Hara got in. You know, people's faces change, and you could even look sometimes at people, and you know, the word, one of the most ironic words in Hebrew is the word for a face. What's the word for a face called? Panim. Panim, which means the internal. Pnim means the inside. The Minister of Interior in Israel called the Misrat Pnim. None of you should ever have to go there. The Minister of Interior is called the Misrat Pnim. Panim is the most external part of a person. Why is it? Why is the face called the internal? The panim, panim. Why?
It has like some sense of character. It lies on the face.
Correct. Your face. You could tell, not for everybody, but you look at a person's face and it tells you a lot of what's going on inside. The face shows on inside. A person who is morally corrupt, at a certain point, it shows on his face. Yeah. A person who is holy, who is angelic, it shows on his face. there's what do you call it? The pasuk that's chochmas adam ta'ir panav. A person's wisdom causes his face to glow. You can look at the guy and say, this guy looks like a smart guy. He looks like a wise person. If you ever saw Rav Chaim Kanievsky, his face practically glowed in the dark. There's a glow, and you could sense it. You take a look at Reb Moshe Feinstein's face, you see this is a man that I'd like to be friends with. There are other people, I told you, there are certain people, you meet them and you look at their face, and the first impression is, no matter what happens, I will never lend this guy money. That's my first impression of him. Why? Because you see, so here they've got, now I'll show you a tremendous, first of all, what's the idea of them being intrinsically attached to this kaporas? Well, the kaporas goes on the Aron Kodesh. And what the Torah is teaching you is when you raise children on Torah, remember this is the cover of the Torah, if you raise children on Torah and Torah values, they will grow out of it to become these angelic-like kids. That doesn't mean all frum kids are angels. Now remember, there is something called the angel of death, right? So it doesn't mean all frum kids are little angels, but they're pretty good. They're pretty good, and the things that they're up to, they're pretty good. You know, they could get mischievous, and they could get, but there's a limit. Now I want to show you something. One of the commentators points out, you get the chills from this. If you do, we'll close the window. Take a look back in Bereshis when Adam Harishon is expelled from the Garden of Eden. All the way back on page, what do you call it? Let's see, what page is it? It's the last pasuk. On page 18. We are just so distorted by television and movies. It's remarkable. I'm just what do you call it? You'll see why I said that. The bottom of page 18, 5 lines from the bottom. This is after the original sin, and now they're going to be expelled. And the Torah says, 5 lines from the bottom on page 18, Vayegoresh es ha'adam. He chases man out. He expels man from Gan Eden. Vayashkein mikeden legan Eden es hakruvim. He puts kruvim to the east of Gan Eden. Ve'es lahat hacherev hamisapeches. The flaming sword. How does he translate it? The flame of the ever-turning sword. I'm not sure what it is, but it's a good idea to stay away. Lishmor is derech eitz hachayim. So he puts these kruvim with flaming swords to protect the entrance to Gan Eden so nobody gets to the tree of life. Okay, and what are these kruvim? Take a look at Rashi. Rashi says over here, it's the left column of Rashi, 8 lines from the top. Hakruvim, says Rashi, Malache Chavola. What's Malache Chavola? Destructive angels. Malache Chavola, destructive angels. What did Rashi say the Kruvim are over here? On our page, what does Rashi say?
Children.
They have the facial, the innocent, sweet face of children. And over here it says they're destructive angels. Well, make up your mind.
Which both statements are true.
Speak. Yeah, well, they both say, yeah. Well, when you see what my house looks like after my grandchildren have been there, you know, the innocent ones who have looked like a tornado struck. Yeah, no, they're still sweet little kids. They're still sweet little kids. At the end of the day, it depends how you raise your children. If you raise them out in the open, Gan Eden is you raise them out in the empty fields with no structure and no rules. So what are they going to turn into? They're going to turn into Malachi Chavol. They're going to be destructive angels. Take a look at every public school in the United States has metal detectors, doesn't it? When you go into the school, what are they looking for? A metallic Mesilas Yesharim. What do you call? What are they looking for? In case he's got metallic tefillin with him? No. They're looking for guns and knives and brass knuckles and all sorts of good things. And that's at every school. And in Israel, they have it, unfortunately, the state public schools. The state public schools, they did a survey in Israel. The state public schools, 33% of the kids said they carry, they have these plastic box cutters, these knives, 33% of the kids said they carried these plastic box cutters. And of those 33%, 50% said they carried them in self-defense. Because you're going to get destructive angels. It's unfortunate. You raise kids on Torah, you know what's going to happen when you raise kids on Torah? About the worst thing they're going to do is not bench. Right? Or cheat when they're playing Monopoly. Right? And sometimes say Asher Yotzar too fast. That's about it. You know, there's a limit. There's a limit. Why is that? It's because you raise them on Torah, you're going to produce these, you can produce that. Now, again, they're not all innocent. My grandson last night, they had in his cheder, he's 9 years old, they finished the entire Chumash. They finished the entire Chumash. They made a siyum, a grand siyum on Chumash. 120 kids, 3 classes in the cheder, 120 kids, were wearing little vests, fancy silver glowing vests. It's one of the most beautiful things. It's a heart ceremony where these little kids are finishing Chumash and they have a siyum and they're singing and speeches and they give them each kid a little award and a little thing. These are Kruvim. These are Kruvim. The trick is to keep them as Kruvim, to keep it with that image. You know, then eventually they're going to be teenagers and confront life. But right now, that's what they are. That's what happens when you grow. Now, look at the next pasuk. The fourth line from the top, 448. From the 2 edges of the kapor, they grow out of it. They grow out of the kaporis. And then the Torah says something very telling. Their wings spread upwards. Their wings, again, we're translating as wings, over this kapores. The kapores is the cover. Ufnehem, now watch this. Ufnehem ishal achiv, they face each other. El ha-kapores yupnekrim, towards the kapores. Now make up your mind, they're facing each other, they're facing the kapores. So the basic explanation is, well, they're facing each other, but with a little bit downwards, looking downwards. Which means facing each other, gentlemen, is a symbolism of what? What do you think 2 Kruvim facing each other is symbolism of?
Peace. Connection.
Connection between?
Man and woman.
Man and woman for sure. And man and his fellow man. Yeah. Right? It's a Bein Adam L'Chavero concept, facing each other. But what is our Bein Adam L'Chavero? Now there are 2 things. The wings face up, point upwards, which obviously the wings are reaching towards Shemayim. And you're facing downwards towards the Torah. That means there's a double requirement in Bein Adam L'Chavero. Number 1, our man to fellow man relationship is not because of humanitarian feelings. The idea of man to fellow man is because the Torah says you have to be good to your fellow man. The trick here is that when you're good to your fellow man, it's got to be very natural. It's a very tricky interplay. On the one hand, it's not a human value. It's not a human value. It's a Torah value of being good to other people. But part of that value is be good to other people because you're very naturally concerned about other people. You understand where it's a tricky line. But not because you think it's the right thing to do, number 1. And number 2, you have to be good to other people only based on Torah values. That means if I see somebody, what do you call it, who's doing something wrong, I can't do something for somebody if it's not the right thing. For example, let's say somebody's carrying a heavy package, and they ask you for help, but the package is a Jew, not a goy, a Jew carrying a heavy package, but the package is full of ham, which they're bringing into their house because you can't carry it for them. You can't help them, you can't aid and abet somebody to do an avera. But I got to be nice to my fellow man. Yeah, but according to the way the Torah says to do it. Only the way the Torah says to do it. Now, you always have to be careful. Hold for a few minutes. You have to be careful here because there's a difference between, and this is where sometimes they're what we call religious extremists. Now, there are different levels of extremism. The first rule in extremism is anybody who does more than me is extreme. That's a rule in life, right? So if I jog a mile a day, and you jog, Alex, 3 miles a day, then you're a bit extreme. Well, that's a bit extreme, isn't it? Because a mile a day is, and if you don't do any jogging, then you're extremely lazy. But what I do is that's perfect. And that's one level of extreme. The definition of extreme is anybody who does any more or less than what I do, because I'm obviously the standard in life. That's how we think. But There's what we call religious extremism. Now, you've heard about people throwing stones at cars on Shabbos and yelling Shabbos and that sort of thing. You know, if you yell Shabbos, do you know there's actually halachic? Don't do it. The first time I'm telling you, don't. But there is halachic grounds to yell Shabbos. And you're not doing it because you want a guy, I'd love to go out there on the street and say, Shabbos! You know, and a guy stops his car and say, wow, this is a beautiful religion. Tell me more about this. You know, no, that's not going to happen. That's not why you're yelling Shabbos. You're yelling Shabbos no differently than if somebody would come walking through your neighborhood with no clothing on and your children are around. What would you do? That would elicit a response, right? Then you'd get upset. If you really care about Shabbos enough that it bothers you when you see a car driving on Shabbos, then you're a person that can say yell Shabbos. But that's also conditional to one other thing. If you see a hungry person, you got to yell, meal! And somehow people don't yell as much when it comes to helping people out as they do when it comes to condemning. And our approach is we don't do either. You know, some people go out on Shabbos afternoon to yell Shabbos. First, they can't throw stones, that's for sure. Even if you designate the stone before Shabbos, so it shouldn't be muktzah. Well, I designated this is the mitzvah, the projectile that I'm going to be using to fulfill the mitzvah of smashing cars. No, none of that works. Number one. Number two, that's not our approach. But you have to understand that not everything, there's no humanitarianism over here. I'm not allowed to do it, I shouldn't do it. There's a limit. Our Bein Adam L'Chavero is also based on Torah values. It's also based on Torah. That has to be clear over here. Now, one more point on this is, yes, take a look at one more point. V'nasata el hakapores al ha'oron milmala. You should put the kapores, Pasuk 21, on the oron at the top. Ve'el ha'oron titein esa edus asher etein alecha. And in the oron, you shall put the testimony which I have given you, which refers to what? What's the edus? It's obviously the Torah, the Ten Commandments. And by the way, it says that the tablets that Moshe Rabbeinu brought down, between the commands, there's one opinion of the Gemara that between the commands were written all of the mitzvahs. So all 613 mitzvahs are written on somehow. Different opinions in the Gemara exactly how it works, but that's what's called the testimony. It's called the edus, the testimony. Now I want to ask you a question. Why is the Torah called the edus? It's a testimony. Why is it a testimony?
Is it not testifying God's will?
Obviously. But why testimony? So just say the instruction book. Why is it called testimony? Why is it called testimony?
It's written in the form of history, of our history. It's testimony that we...
A test to the Jewish people. Okay, good.
Doesn't change.
What?
Doesn't change.
Doesn't change. It doesn't change. That's why it's carved in stone, which is where the expression comes from. Good. We'll see in a second. Take a look back all the way Parsha's told us. There's something very interesting. This is the first, Chayesar, not told us. Chayesar. This is where Eliezer goes to look for Rivka, right? The first shidduch in history. And Eliezer goes to look for Rivka. And if you take a look on page 118, so Eliezer goes there and he's dealing with Lavan and Lavan's mother, and he's trying to work a deal to get Rivka to come back and marry Yitzchak. Remember that? Yitzchak Eliezer. Okay. So Eliezer says they suggest, well, after they see that he's not giving, he doesn't give them very elaborate gifts. He gives her gold. He gives them fruit. So that kind of diffuses their enthusiasm for the shidduch. So they say, well, maybe she should stay around here for a while, but let her stay a little longer. And Eliezer says, no, send me on my way. So what did they say? Vayomru, they say the following. Nikra lanara, let's call the young lady, page 118, right in the middle of the page. They say to Eliezer, Vayomru nikra lanara, let's call the young lady, Venishala espiha, and we'll ask her. Let's ask her what she wants to do. Now, it's a strange expression, because literally, how would you translate it? Venishala espiha. Let's ask her mouth. The commentaries ask about this. The Mefarshim ask, why does it should say Vinishal es hanara, Vinishala. That's how you would say it. That's the only time that it says Vinishala espia. We'll ask her mouth. Why are we asking her mouth? What does that mean? So you know what the commentaries say over here? You're not going to believe it. I'll tell you, this is really a good one. Commentaries say, we're going to ask this young lady what she wants to do. Now, anybody who's been married for any great length of time, any male who's been married for any great length of time, like about 10 minutes. So you know that women, what they say and what they mean are not always the same, right? Not always means like 90% of the time, not the same. So you got to know how to read them. So for example, when the husband decides that, it's late on Tuesday, he says to his wife, do you mind if I go out tonight with the boys? And the boys are getting together tonight for, we're going to go out and we're going to, just have some beer and reminisce a little bit. Do you mind if we go out while she stays home with the kids? And she says, no, I don't mind. Now, what does that mean?
You have to stay.
It may be that. It may, what's that?
It's a good idea.
It's probably wise to stay, depending on, if she says, no, go out, have a good time, I don't mind. Then your chances are better. Still not sure. If she says, no, I don't mind. Then if you go, when you come back, you're going to wish they were waterboarding you compared to what you're about to go through. Okay? So here, they're cutting a deal. And Lavan, who knows himself that he's a swindler, he says to Eliezer, Nishala espiha. That means no interpretation here. Whatever comes out of her mouth, that's it. Don't tell me if she says no, she really means yes. If she says yes, she really no. We're making a deal right now. Whatever she says, Nishala espiha. Whatever comes out of her mouth. Let's let the Meforshim say over here. That should be, let's get it clear. There's no room for interpretation. Torah is called edus. Because when it comes to edus, a guy testifies in court. We don't read into his testimony. What happens when he testifies in court? Whatever he says, that's it. That's what we do. That's what he meant. What he said is what we meant in court. Sometimes in Torah, obviously we do have interpretations. And if the Torah says an eye for an eye, we know you don't go poking people's eyes out. It means money. And there are interpretations. But it's only Torah interpretations. We interpret Torah according to the way Torah. Don't come along and tell me, no, the Torah didn't really mean that. The Torah meant something else. And the Torah, usually to soften the Torah. It's edus. It's like testimony. What it says is what we do based on our tradition of what that interpretation is. Not to come along with new interpretations. So what's the ultimate new interpretation? The ultimate interpretation is called the New Testament. What is the New Testament? The New Testament means that somewhere along the way, God turned around and said, oh, by the way, I'm going to change things. Even though the Torah itself says that God says he's never going to change things. Therefore it's called an edus. This is testimony. Regard it as testimony. That's how we regard Torah. What it says is what we do. That's it. Game over. Okay? Yaakov, you're going to ask something earlier.
Oh yes, with the Kerubim, could it also be that, I was going to get the picture, it's on page
48.
448.
Yeah, go ahead.
On page 448, could it also be that in order to face your fellow, you should both be trying to raise up to the heavens by studying Torah together? That's what allows you to face one another.
That's one of the reasons why it says ve'asu. It says ve'asu by the Torah. It says ve'asu aron atzei shitim. That we said yesterday, it's a Torah study with partnership. You learn together. And Yehuda asked an excellent question yesterday, which I didn't answer, which is why it says ve'asu aron atzei shitim. It sounds like they should do it and not Moshe Rabbeinu. Right? Remember you asked that. And the answer to that is, if it would have said ve'asisa, so then there's room to think, well, who should be involved in learning? Only Moshe Rabbeinu. Torah, after all, he went up to Shemayim 40 days. He brought down the Torah. The Torah is limited to him. The Torah wants it to also. Moshe Rabbeinu obviously is going to be involved in Torah. It's got to be everybody else got to be involved in Torah, not just Moshe Rabbeinu. That's why there's an also. Good. Now, let's go on. So now the Torah goes to the Shulchan. Watch this. So we talked about yesterday on page 448, 7 lines from the bottom. We spoke yesterday about the one broken dimension which goes upwards on the table. Now what are you going to do? Watch this. Vitzipisa oso zohov tohar. You shall make it coated with gold. V'asisa lo zer zahav saviv. And you're going again, there's going to be a golden crown on this table. But watch this. V'asisa lo mizgeres. Now look at that. How does our script translate to mizgeres? A molding. I don't like that. That's how he translates the molding? A molding. A mizgeres is really a frame that closes from the word soger. It closes it in. V'asisa lo mizgeres tofach saviv. V'asitza zer zahav lemisgarto saviv. Now, let's understand. What does the shulchan represent? Abundance. Material well-being. What's the Torah telling you? What does the word make a mizgeres? When it comes to wealth, money, mizgeres means keep it controlled, keep it under control, the desire for money. Remember, there's a saying, the Gemara says, if you have 100, yesh lo moneh rotza masayim. A guy who has 100 wants 200. Guy who has 200 wants how much?
400.
400. Guy has 400 wants 800. What's the irony of life? The irony is that the more you have, the farther you're removed from your goal. When I had my first million, when I get my first million, then all I want is my second million. Should happen soon, say amen. When I have my thank you. When I get my, well, don't just say amen, make some donations, man. When I get to, when I have 2 million, how much do I want? 4 million, right? So I'm 2 million away from my goal. When I have 4 million, I'm 4 million. I keep moving further away. What does that mean? That means that it's it's never safe. For most people, it's not, if that's your goal in life, you're never going to be satiated. If your goal is money, if your goal is wealth, you're never going to get there. And for no other reason, I mean, honestly, how much money do you really need? Here, a guy wins the Super Bowl. The guy's making a $500 million contract for 10 years. Did you know that, Chaim? American football, we pay. It's not like English football, where they got to live like beggars. In American, and we should be such beggars. In American football, guy's $50 million a year. I could get used to that. How much money do you need? $50 million, $1 billion a week? What are you going to buy? For toast? For milk and cheese doesn't cost you $1 million, right? He's got more money than he can spend in 3 lifetimes. That's not the point. But there's another guy who's earning per year a little bit. The guy on Philadelphia has actually got a $250.5 million over 5 years, so that he could earn, right, Alex? So that he could earn just a little bit more than he could. So it's the money isn't even about the money. It's about the competition now. It's endless. So there's a guy in the world who's the second. I think Bill Gates is now number 2, and there's Bill Gates number 2 in the world. Who's number 1? What's his name? Musk. What about the other guy? Amazon. Amazon. He probably can't sleep at night. He probably can't sleep at night because Musk has more than he does. What do you think his he's also? Hey, I was number 1. I'm number 2. Nobody wants to be number 2. So what's the difference if you're poor? What's the difference if you're competing with less money or more money? Either way, you're not happy. So the Torah is telling you, Vasisa misgarto. That's the crown. But more than that. Vasisa lo arba tabozav, make 4 rings. Now, remember yesterday what we said the rings represent on the Aron Kodesh? The eternal reward you get for studying Torah. Okay, so the commentaries say they're different symbolisms. You know what the symbolism of a ring by table and prosperity is? The Gemara says one of the Amoraim said to his wife to give tzedakah when somebody needs to give tzedakah so they'll give to your children. She said to him, "You're cursing our children that they should become poor?" The guy says to his wife, when a guy comes to ask you for money, make sure you give money so that these people will then give to your descendants, to give to your offspring. So she said to him, why are you cursing our offspring? He said, I'm not cursing them, but the nature of tzedakah is it's a galgal hachozer ba'olam. It's a cycle that repeats itself in life. It goes around in cycles. You get the fact that somebody has money doesn't mean that his kids are going to have money. It doesn't mean his grandchildren are going to have money. And if somebody's poor, it doesn't mean he's always going to be poor. I knew a guy who was so poor that when he had his first son, they couldn't even afford a baby carriage. They pulled out the dresser drawer and they put the little blanket in the drawer, and they didn't close the drawer, obviously. They used the drawer as the what do you call it? That's where he put his kid. This guy became a multi-millionaire. He gave over $50 million away in his lifetime to tzedakah. So, it's a cycle. Torah is telling you, put 4 rings on this shulchan. Then on your own table, you should have a reminder everywhere you look, like your tzitzis is on your 4 corners. There's a reminder everywhere you look when you have money that there are people, it could just as easily change. What happened? When was the big crash? 2007, 2008? 2008? Guys who were multi-millionaires, and they lost everything. Almost overnight, essentially overnight. And they lost everything. What happened? The guy could never, how can I possibly lose my money? So Rav Dessler Zatzal, who wrote the Michtav Me'Elio, what's it called? It translated in English. What's it translated? What's the Michtav Me'Elio in English? What's it called?
The Tales of Elio?
Not the Tales of it, no. The Michtav, something, Strive for Truth. Strive for Truth. That whole series, the beautiful series. Rav Dessler was one of the tremendous thinker. So Rav Dessler's father was a wealthy man living somewhere in Russia. There was a revolution of sorts. Could you believe it? In Russia, every country's got their national sport. In America, it's baseball. In England, it's soccer. And in Russia, it's revolutions. Right? That's the national sport. So there was a revolution of sort. And overnight, they declared the currency worthless. And Rav Dessler's father went broke as a result. And Rav Dessler said at that point he realizes the futility of material accumulation. It can be taken away from him in an instant in so many different ways. And as a result of that, he went to England. This saved his life, actually, because he left Lithuania, went to England to become a rabbi there in England in order to have a salary to pay off his father's debts. And as a result of that, he survived the war. So sometimes we don't even know something that looks negative could actually be positive. But you could have a lot of money and you could lose your money. There's a medrash. Now listen to this medrash. The Medrash Tanchuba says there was a man who had tremendous amount of barrels of wine. He had a whole wine cellar full of barrels of wine. He was a wine merchant. He didn't tithe his money properly. He didn't tithe his money religiously. One day, he got into a fit of madness. He took a club and he started smashing his own barrels of wine. So his son came down and said, "Hey, you lunatic, what are you doing?" So the father hit the kid. So the kid grabbed the club and he started smashing barrels of wine. So the two of them went smashing their barrels of wine. The Gemara says, why is that? Because he was gripped by the spirit. God instilled in him a spirit of madness. So you should go and smash the barrels of wine. That's what the Medrash says. And gentlemen, can I ask you a question? Have you ever seen anybody do this? Have you ever seen anybody just go berserk and smash up their own office? Their own computers, their own... Ever seen anybody do that?
I can imagine why.
You've seen it a lot. You've seen it many times. You've seen it many times. Did you ever see anybody who made a bad investment and said, what was I thinking? Never happened. Maybe you, somebody else made a bad investment. You know where the mistake is? Now listen carefully. We think, when we hear about a guy, I knew a guy, I knew the guy's kids personally. There was a guy who was worth about 800 million sterling, and he lost it all. He had 300 million sterling invested in the Bank of Iceland. And the Bank of Iceland went kaput. He had another pile invested in South America, I think it was silver mines or something like that, and a partner ripped him off. He lost 800 million. That's a lot. Okay? Now, if I had 800 million, and you've had this thought too, not about me, you've thought about yourself, that's the problem. Yeah, if you had 800 million, when you hear about, you've had daydreams, don't tell me you haven't. If I had that much, I would never lose the money because some I would put here and some I would, hey, we got it all worked out exactly and how much stucco we would give out. You know why you're thinking that way? Because you don't have the 800 million. We think that the thoughts are our own thoughts. But if HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants to take away the money from you, he puts that thought into your mind till you make the lousy investment. The same, that's what the Medrash is telling you. HaKadosh Baruch Hu dropped the madness in his mind to go smash the barrels. So when a guy goes and takes money and makes a foolish investment, he's like, what was I thinking? The answer is, you think that you were thinking. HaKadosh Baruch Hu put that thought in your mind. He made it look tempting for whatever, however he conned you into doing it. But you weren't necessarily in control there. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu decided that's how he's going to take away your money. And not only that, it happens on other decisions in life too. There is no married man who hasn't thought at some point, usually early on in marriage, there isn't a married man who hasn't thought at some point, what was I thinking? I'm not kidding. I heard a big rabbi once said, if a guy tells you that at no point in his first year of marriage he doesn't think to himself, what was I thinking? He's a liar. Girls generally not. Girls are much more mature about it. That's all part of the process. HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants you to marry her. She, out of billions of people that have ever existed, is the one that was chosen for you to have to quarrel with through eternity. And that's the perfect soulmate for you. And you were made a decision at that point, so HaKadosh Baruch Hu hoodwinked you into it, right? Because this is the one. And that, yes, it's going to happen. You're going to think to yourself, boy, what was I thinking? Don't worry, you'll get past it. Just be mature, get past it. Eventually you'll say, yes, this is the one I meant to fight with through eternity, right? You will get to that point, but you got to work your way through it and not panic when it happens. Girls are a little more, I get to one second. Girls are a little bit more mature because the girls in general, they see that this guy's no prize. Right? Somebody once said, listen to this, you're going to love this. Somebody said, you know the difference between men and women when they get married? A husband thinks of his wife. When you're standing under the chuppah, you're thinking in terms of, she's wonderful and I hope she'll always be like this. And the girl is thinking, he's got wonderful potential. That's the entire difference right there. That's the whole package right there. So you think that you're in control of all your decisions and all of your thoughts. But often we're being manipulated because Baruch wants to move us around a little bit. That's what happens over here. You got 4 rings over here. You know what? Make sure, I'll get to you 1 second. Make sure you think about the poor people. Yeah, go ahead.
How does this idea that you just described,
how does it fit with free choice? Right, okay, good, excellent. The answer is, free choice is up to the point that HaKadosh Baruch Hu takes it away from you. Right? How does free choice fit with losing a wallet? You ever lose a wallet?
No,
Did you choose?
I've lost other things.
Did you lose it? Did you ever choose to lose those things?
No.
No. You chose to go somewhere, and that's where the pickpocket was lurking. Right? HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave you the thought to go over there because he wants to take your wallet away from you. HaKadosh Baruch Hu made this investment look very tempting and gave you the thought to invest there so he could take away your money.
So our free choice then doesn't lie in
Your
our actions as much as our reactions?
Correct.
Ah,
So it's primarily internal locus of control.
Internal?
Locus of control.
But we can still
Whatever that means, I'll say yes, because I have no idea what that means, but we'll call it yes. The bottom line is that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the same way HaKadosh Baruch Hu hardened Paro's heart also. He doesn't mean he took away his free choice completely, according to some of the commentaries. But he creates a situation where your temptations, however it works, listen, the guy invested in the Bank of Iceland. I guarantee you he did what's called due diligence, and he what do you call it? He checked it out and thought about it before doing it. But at the end of the day, others who under those circumstances would have looked at it, if he would have asked somebody else, would have told him it's foolish. And you end up doing foolish things. A person can do foolish things. The Kosher gives you that thought because the person is not. And the Gemara says, "Why he didn't give away?" I don't know about the guy who lost his money, but the guy who broke barrels, the Medrash says because he didn't give meiser, so Kosher Baruch Hu punished him, and he made him go mad. Sometimes a person does things irrationally. HaKadosh Baruch Hu takes away a rational thought. That has nothing to do with free choice. You have free choice within a state of irrationality. That's what it took. 1 second. One more point. One more point, then we stop. Then it says, look at three lines from the bottom. Le'umas hamisgeres tiyena hatabos. Facing the enclosure, the frame, shall be the rings. Libatim levadim. They shall be houses for the staves, laseis es hashulchan, to carry the table. Now let me ask you a question. The word badim, a singular one, is called what? A bad, which comes from the Hebrew word bad bivad, bad bivad yihya, which means alone. Who are the lonely people in the world? Poor people. Poor people don't have a lot of friends. And a guy who's poor, often as he comes towards you, people go in the other direction because they want to get hit up for another. He's coming to ask for money. I think there's a pasuk says the wealthy man has many friends. Everybody likes the wealthy man. Wealthy man walks into a room, no matter what he says is clever, witty, people laugh at his jokes. Somebody once said the difference between being eccentric and being clever.
Crazy
There's a difference. Yeah, the difference between crazy and eccentric is a few $1 million. When you're a millionaire, you're only eccentric, right? When you got no money, then you're a meshugginer. Nobody's calling million. The guy who does weird things with a lot of money, oh, he's a bit eccentric. Sure, nobody's going to call him a meshugginer. Levadim, batim levadim. Your houses, your table should be a home for the poor people. That means you should open up people who are needy, you should feed them. Your home, your table, we're talking about the table. Your table of material wealth in your home, lebatim levadim, you make sure your table is a home for the poor. Let them be sitting at your table. You know what happens then? Laseis es hashulchan. That's what's going to carry your table. Your table is carried by your generosity to the poor people. You want to have material abundance? The more generous you are to the poor, the more abundance, the more laseis, that'll carry your table. As opposed to you thinking you're carrying them, they're really carrying you. If you're generous to the poor will be carrying your table. Okay, stop here.